Warning, the following program was produced for traditional broadcast television. Over 12 minutes of commercials have been removed, but interruptions are still included. Thank you for watching.
Even if you just look at gold mining, or if you look at the amount of energy and fossil fuels that we need to secure the petrodollar system through the military-industrial complex.
We use less energy on Bitcoin than any bank, ATM, or infrastructure like that.
This last Cambridge data shows over 52% of Bitcoin mining is now sustainable.
So I just want to drive home the centers like AI data centers, like Microsoft, Google, AWS centers. These places, these data centers operate fundamentally different in the market than crypto miners do.
Government officials insist we will continue to keep you informed as this story unfolds.
Welcome to the Money Block with Matthew J. Moore, the Bitcoin-focused program that's waking the masses to the fiat money Ponzi scheme. Money is changing, and your freedom is at stake. So stick around and learn how to empower yourself for this new digital age. Now, here's your host, Matthew J. Moore.
And welcome, America. Welcome, world. You are here at the right time, right place. That's right. This is the Money Block, America's Bitcoin-focused TV radio show. Heck, we're all over the place. We're online. So thanks for tuning in, because some of you might be new to the space, crypto newbies, lovers, and experts. You're all welcomed. In fact, today's conversation is exciting. But before we dive into it, I just need to let you know that, if you're watching online, be sure to give us a comment, a like, subscribe, share, be a part of the conversation, because the topic will matter, and I want you part of that conversation. Today, we have a guest that I'm excited to introduce. She's another person from Oklahoma, but we're going to be talking about Bitcoin mining. We're going to be talking about the impact that it has and how it relates to data centers, just general data centers, AI. People are talking about AI. But what are some of those misconceptions about Bitcoin mining? Is it bad for the environment? Is it bad because it uses a lot of energy? Well, these are questions that people often have if they're new to the space. We're going to cover it all, maybe give some insight on how it all works, and you'll walk away from this a whole lot more educated. But today's guest, her name is Caulene MacDonald, and I would like you to, think about this. If you're watching this show, energy is every part of our life. Whether we realize it or not, energy touches everything. And Bitcoin is energy. It's monetized energy. And so Caulene, she's coming at this from a unique perspective. I mean, she's paying attention to the regulations. She's a student on Bitcoin mining as well. She's the president chapter of this organization called Stand with Crypto here in Oklahoma. And I'm really excited to hear her thoughts on this. But Caulene, before we dive into the deep conversation, I need you to share with our listeners a little bit about your background in your own words, so that way they can understand, hey, why should I be listening to this girl?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you having me on today. Thank you so much. I look forward to kind of talking to you guys about this. But like you said, I'm Caulene MacDonald. I am the Oklahoma chapter president for Stand with Crypto. We are a nonprofit grassroots organization that's focused on kind of making common sense crypto legislative policy a reality. Over the course of Bitcoin's life back in 2008, 2009, I was about 18, 19 years old, just kind of coming out of high school. And by 2013, 2014, I was in Afghanistan and I found myself watching a Bitcoin documentary. I immediately understood the implications of having a money that was totally separate from intermediaries, and I was excited about it, but I felt like I didn't have the technical capability to really understand it yet. So I kind of waited some time, and by the time I entered college, a roommate of mine who is also a veteran, he started talking to me about how he trades crypto. And so I was like, oh my gosh, great, we're trading crypto now, right? And from there, I just decided to really get my hands dirty with it. I have spent hundreds of hours learning about this stuff, everything from Bitcoin itself to Ethereum to DeFi. So I'm a blockchain finance professional with a DeFi specialization at this point. I do have a crypto forensics certification as well for transaction tracing and things like that. So that's kind of how I got involved.
I love it. Well, we got to go to break, but when we come back, I want to dig deeper. She's got a lot of knowledge, so you guys, if you're watching, stay put. We'll be right back. This is the Money Block. What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is round 2 of the Money Block. That's right, it is segment 2. And man, are we going to start diving deep into today's topic? It's Bitcoin mining, it's data centers, it's AI, it's energy. How do they all intertwine? How do they relate? Should we care? I mean, a lot of people talk about the environment. A lot of people talk about energy needs. Money at the end of the day is energy, in my opinion. But we are going to decipher and dissect some of this stuff with our wonderful guest today. But before we bring all this back and keep this car in motion, I just want to let you guys know that if you're watching this, I just want to thank you. I want to give you a free gift. So you're going to see a QR code. It's going to pop up right over there. Be sure to get out your phone, scan that. It's my way of saying thank you for tuning in today. It is a free digital download of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty, and it'll give you the tools, ideas that may prepare you for this coming digital age. Sovereignty, liberty, independence, how to navigate all this stuff. I think it's very important to have the first principles, the core foundation about how to preserve your sovereignty. So be sure to download that. It's my way of saying thank you. Also, if you're watching online, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, give us your thoughts, your opinions. I want you a part of this conversation. But man, let's go deep into this. Let's dive into it. On the line, I have Caulene MacDonald. She is the Oklahoma president of the chapter Stand with Crypto, and she's been doing years of study on cryptocurrency, DeFi, mining. She's kind of like me. She's a nerd in this space, so I'm sure she'll have some really good insight. She's been doing it for a while. But Caulene, before we went to break, I was given you the opportunity to share your background, and I just briefly touch on that real quick. You were saying that you were loosely familiar with it when you were overseas in the military. It felt like you needed to do more studying, but continue your story about how you got deeper and deeper into this crypto space.
Yeah, so kind of after I began to realize that, like, okay, this is coming online a little bit more, we have more than just Bitcoin going on even, I started really digging into everything from Bitcoin to Ethereum to layer 2s and everything else. I then became kind of friends with some of the people over at Bitcoin Veterans, and actually they do have a veteran summit at Bitcoin Park that's coming up this Veterans Day, so if you guys are in Nashville, check that out. But the Bitcoin veterans were great. And, after that, I just started studying intensely on my own, trying to figure out, what is this? Will it actually work? Are the criticisms about it true? Are they not true? Are they misinformed? What have you? And now I've gotten to this point where most of the people that I am talking to about this stuff actually need this information now, right? Because we're getting to a point where traditional finance is kind of starting with their ETFs and deepening the liquidity on all of these protocols and such. And I want to see that if and when this merge happens, that there are enough people who have an escape hatch out of fiat into crypto so that they can really kind of hedge for themselves their futures and have positive working futures moving forward.
Well, you're tickling my ears. You said merge. When this merges together here, what do you? I know what you mean, but explain to the audience what you mean when you say that.
Yeah. So what I mean is that when all of these kind of new payment rails come through, when traditional finance begins to move on to the blockchain, it's going to change how we as individuals interact with money because the money is built differently. So there are different properties of money, obviously, and now we have Bitcoin as the first money that is, no borders, totally digital, but it has the same hardness or more hardness than even gold does. That's due to transportability, right? It's a lot more difficult to get a bar of gold, for example, and send it to a friend in Dubai or something than it is to just instantly send them some Bitcoin. So I think that when that merge actually occurs, when everything goes onto the blockchain, folks are going to have a whole new set of incentive structures, rules of the road, for example, that are going to determine how they interact with this technology and therefore how they use money every day. So I want to make sure that people can understand it so that when this happens, they're able to cash in on the first opportunity we've had since the dawning of gold to kind of reset themselves financially to have a stronger future.
I love it. You couldn't have said it any better. That's a whole nother episode. We could go deep down to that, but we're not today. I just wanted to give some context. But let's go into Bitcoin mining here.
Yes.
A lot of people have this idea that Bitcoin is just a bunch of computers wasting electricity. But can you explain in simple terms what Bitcoin miners are actually doing and how it's a benefit to electricity and the grid? And we will get into the whole environment aspect of it. But how would you dispel just the general idea that people have about Bitcoin mining just being these computers wasting electricity?
Well, first, I would say that because of the way that the Bitcoin protocol is structured and therefore how miners behave, they are largely incentivized to look for cheap energy. So when they're looking for cheap energy, that's going to be energy that isn't being used or energy that's on the grid that is kind of surplus energy, extra energy. So in places like Texas and Oklahoma, we do see energy surpluses. As a result of that, many miners end up in these states to kind of take advantage of that cheap energy. A great example of this is Nakamoto. They are a Bitcoin miner here in Oklahoma, and they actually use reserve flared energy. And essentially what that means is this energy is going to get burned off no matter what. And no one will necessarily be able to, cash in on whatever that energy is. It's just wasted energy. And so Bitcoin miners come in oftentimes under renewables, using renewable energies to be able to mine Bitcoin. So as far as the energy consumption is concerned, I would say that, most projects are going to be using that renewable energy as opposed to something else because it's cheaper.
Yeah, and as Bitcoin miners operate and they're going after the SHA-256 algorithm, they're basically solving this problem. They're getting block rewards from the transactions as well, or they're getting transaction fees as well. But through this process, it is what they call proof of work, where they're using energy to solve a problem, and when they solve that problem, it basically rewards them. Gold. Very much similar. You're having to use energy to pull gold out of the ground. It's a byproduct. It's a de facto tool to represent our energy in the economic world, our store of value. But Bitcoin mining is unique because this proof of work process often acts like a sponge in which it's using, in good times, it's soaking up excess energy, and in bad times, it's you can squeeze that sponge, that metaphorical sponge, and have that energy go elsewhere. So, explain to us your thoughts around how Bitcoin mining is, I guess, helping the grid by doing this.
Yeah, so the term that we largely use for data centers, such as those that you might use for Google or Microsoft, or even the AI data centers now, those are firm loads. Firm meaning that the energy consumption that those data centers are tied to is also tied to their service contract. So at any point, they cannot just turn off the service without breaching that service contract. So they're firm loads, and that regardless of a severe weather event or high electricity prices, for example, they still have to maintain their services no matter what, no matter how high that number actually goes. So this would be like hospitals, emergency services, things like that. But Bitcoin mining is different. So as volatility has come down for Bitcoin price, it means that the break even number for a miner is more easily predictable for them in real time. So they're actually looking at the price of Bitcoin, they are looking at how much energy consumption they're using, and then they're looking at their hard costs. So that'll be things like their ASIC miners, maybe their laborers to, maintain those machines, water cooling systems, etc. And the whole point is they need to be able to make sure that for every Bitcoin that they mine, they're actually in the black, right? That they're making profit on it. However, if you're on an electrical grid, for example, and the price of electricity shoots up beyond like maybe 20 cents per kilowatt, then you're looking at something that is going to require a curtailment immediately by the Bitcoin miner because they need to be able to maintain that profitability. During continuous volatility, that number is more difficult to predict because the price is swinging so extremely. But as volatility has come down, Bitcoin miners then become more sensitive to the price of energy as opposed to the price of Bitcoin itself, right? And so as a result of that, it makes miners a little bit more sticky over the long term when they're operating in a particular community. And it also means that because they can curtail whenever it's required for them to based on their business model, that they can curtail immediately.
That's right. And I want to go into that a little bit more because they can just hit a switch and turn off, where a lot of other industries can't do that. All right, guys, we got to go back to break, but we'll be right back. This is the Money Block. Stay tuned. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is round 3, segment 3 of the Money Block. And man, we are syndicated coast to coast on BizTV. And if you're watching on television, well, hey, thanks for tuning in. And if you're watching online, well, be sure to give us a comment, like, subscribe, be a part of the conversation, because I think all of us at some point will have to take a look and think about data centers, their impact on society, Bitcoin mining, how does that tie into it? Because data is key. And a lot of businesses, I know a lot of businesses that have once been a certain type of business and found themselves turning into a data business. And as the world becomes digital, data is going to be so important. But let's dive into this infrastructure. Let's dive into this mining process that Bitcoin has. We've been talking about how it differentiates itself from just regular data centers, Bitcoin mining specifically, and how AI data centers work. And, the guest that we have on the line today, her name is Caulene MacDonald, and she is the president of the Oklahoma chapter of Stand with Crypto. And she's big on advocacy. She knows what she's talking about. She's been doing her homework, and man, I've really been enjoying our conversation. But before I bring her back on the line and go deeper into what we were talking about, I just want to remind you guys that if you're watching this, thank you. Here is a free gift for you. In fact, you're going to see a QR code that pops up right over here. Be sure to get out your phone, scan that QR code. It's my way of saying thanks for tuning in. It is a digital copy, a digital download of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty, and it'll give you the tools, the ideas, the first principles in order to structure your life, how to go about your life in a way that you can maximize your sovereignty and your liberty, especially as we move into this digital age. Very, very important. But also, this topic, I feel Bitcoin mining is often misunderstood. And so I want you to just pay attention to our guest today. So Caulene, let's go ahead and dive back into this. When we went to break, we were talking about Bitcoin mining. And, the one thing that I find unique about Bitcoin mining is, yes, in my opinion, it can help the environment because it's using excess energy that would have been bad for the environment. It allows us to unlock energy potential in areas where maybe it wasn't economically feasible to build infrastructure to utilize those energies in remote places. So there's a lot of benefits. And then we were also talking about the ability to just be able to flick a switch, turn off Bitcoin miners, and you have this demand response thing going on here with the grid and the miners, and how normal data centers, especially ones running AI, don't have this capability. So let's continue here. Do you want to expound upon any of these ideas that we've been covering? Is there anything that I'm missing, or maybe the audience needs to know better?
So I just want to drive home, that the centers like AI data centers, like Microsoft, Google, AWS centers, that these places, these data centers operate fundamentally different in the market than crypto miners do. Those kind of data centers, those are firm loads that when we are doing our grid planning, we have to plan for peak capacity. And if those firm loads are on there, then we have to calculate that in as can our grid actually, maintain these? However, the Bitcoin miner doesn't have that problem. Like you said, we have demand response, which means that we can incentivize miners to turn off during times of high demand, like a serious weather event, but also that turning off is built into their business model. It is how they make money, actually, right? When the price swings largely in one direction or the other, the miner can be incentivized to turn it off based on their break-even number. And the break-even number is not the same among all of the miners, right? So they're not all going to operate exactly the same and turn off at the same time. But we can count on them to be flexible, which means that as they're more like a grid service provider, like a load balancer, an actual grid asset versus a firm grid cost.
Right. Yeah. And, I think a lot of people hear this argument. I know there was an article published in an Oklahoma publication not too long ago, upset with some of this legislation that we got passed in the state in 2024. And it was a criticism on Bitcoin being bad for the environment. And, there was I often get shocked when I hear that argument because, it just seems as time goes on, more and more that's disproved. This last Cambridge data shows over 52% of Bitcoin mining is now sustainable. And, I want to kind of emphasize this because, when Bitcoin miners are looking for the cheapest energy, it's not necessarily always fossil fuel that is the cheapest. Right. But what do you have to say to this when you hear this argument?
That, kind of the best available science is pretty clear. Bitcoin's energy consumption is significant, so I'm not going to downplay that. But it's not a meaningful driver of things like climate change or intense resource consumption. So actually, Bitcoin mining is fueled by about 95% renewable energy, and 75% of miners already use renewable energy as part of their energy mix when they are mining Bitcoin. And the Cambridge Bitcoin Electricity Consumption Index has actually concluded that Bitcoin's environmental footprint currently remains marginal at best. We use less energy on Bitcoin than any bank, ATM, or infrastructure like that. In fact, the energy wasted by machines that are just plugged in your house that you're not actually using alone could run all of the Bitcoin miners for a year and a half in the US. So I think it's important that people understand that just because we do have a large consumption of the Bitcoin protocol, it's not regional consumption, right? It is a global network that is doing consumption across every country in the world that a Bitcoin miner exists. So if a regional miner is having a particular behavior like shutting off or turning on, etc., then that is only going to have regional effects on the grid infrastructure for that region, not the Bitcoin protocol as a whole, not Argentina out in the middle of nowhere. It is a localized impact, but it is a global protocol.
Right, right. Well, we have about a minute before we have to go to break. But, you know, even if you just look at gold mining, or if you look at the amount of energy and fossil fuels that we need to secure the petrodollar system through the military-industrial complex, I mean, you're talking 6 to 8 times more than what Bitcoin is doing. And so it just seems like Bitcoin might be a better tool. And especially when you got this whole demand response thing going on and unlocking renewable energy sources. So, but,
Exactly.
you know, like I said, we got about 40 seconds. So do you have any other last comments before we go to break?
Yeah, I just want to say that like Bitcoin uses about half of the energy that gold mining industry actually does. And we only use about a fifth of what the banking industry does for all of its payment rails and ATMs. So the energy conversation is just largely misconstrued when Bitcoin miners were operating in a market that was more volatile than Bitcoin is today.
Right. And we will go to break here in a second, but real quick, where can people find more about Stand With Crypto?
Yeah, if you go to standwithcryptoalliance.org, that is a great place to start. We have politicians' scorecards for whether they're pro or anti-crypto. You can donate there, email your senators, refer a friend. It's great for advocacy, and we keep people updated on what's going on around them.
Love it. Well, we'll give that website again, but when we come back, we'll have more with Caulene MacDonald. Stay put. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you soon. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is round 4, segment 4 of the Money Block. You've tuned in at the right time, right place. We are syndicated across the United States, coast to coast, on BizTV. So we want to welcome you if you're watching on television. If you are watching online, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, comment, be a part of this conversation, because there's a lot of debate around energy consumption, the environment, data centers. If you're involved in local politics, I bet you it's eventually going to come up. So we got the perfect guest that we've been talking to today to kind of dissect some of this stuff, to differentiate what's going on and how we should be looking at this. It is Caulene MacDonald. She is the president of the Oklahoma chapter of Stand With Crypto. It's been a wonderful conversation so far. But before I bring her back on the line and we go a little bit further in our talk, I just want to remind you guys that I'm thankful. I'm super thankful that you're watching. And so because of that, I'm actually giving you a free gift. And it is a QR code. You're going to see it right over here. No, I'm not giving you a QR code. I want you to pull out your phone. I want you to scan that QR code. It is a digital download of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. And it'll give you the tools and ideas to help you navigate and maintain monetary sovereignty, general liberty and sovereignty as we continue to move forward into this digital age. Because, you know, as technology progresses, it's a tool. It's wonderful, but it can go many ways. You can use a tool for good and you can use a tool for bad. And I just want you to understand where we're at and what you should be doing. So let's go ahead and take it from here. Caulene, you know, before we went to break, you know, we were talking more about Bitcoin mining, but in Oklahoma specifically, we've done I would say, you know, I've been on the ground since 2019, hitting my head against the wall, talking to lawmakers and trying to get, you know, pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin legislation through the finish line. 2024, we were successful. We got 2 bills passed into law. One of them was certain tax breaks for Bitcoin miners. The other one was more centered around, you know, your rights as an individual or even a miner. You have the right to self-custody. You have the right to mine. And there shouldn't be this level of discrimination at the county or city level, quote unquote, you know, referring to the bill here. But you brought up a point that you wanted to talk, and it goes on expanding upon some of these ideas, these clarifications, classifications, and I think you make some good points. So I want you to share your thoughts on the bill that was passed and what we here, especially in Oklahoma, need to be thinking about and doing moving forward as we look at future legislative agendas?
Yes, so we're referring mostly to HB 3594, and this was passed in 2024. It basically says if you're a Bitcoin miner, we're not going to discriminate against you in the state of Oklahoma, which is great because Oklahoma has approximately a 30% surplus in energy supply, which means that Bitcoin miners love being here. There is cheap, available, surplus excess energy. However, when you look at grid planning, so how much we're actually going to have to spend to build, say, a new substation, transmission lines, etc. When we talk about building this stuff, our grid planners are kind of required to treat things in a particular way. So like I mentioned before, the AI data centers, hospitals, etc., they have those service contracts that can't be interrupted, so those are firm loads. So when the grid planners are planning for peak demand, which is how they outline their planning, actually it's your net peak demand plus your net peak demand times your planning reserve margin, right? So the grid planners have to say, okay, this is what we think that our net peak demand is going to be based on how many firm loads that we actually have and which ones of those we need to keep online, and then how that impacts the ratepayer when electricity is in short supply. Right. We saw this in Texas when they kind of had those freeze outs a couple of years ago. All of a sudden, ratepayers were stuck with utilities that were super, super high, and there was just no way that folks would be able to pay that reasonably. Right. So moving into Oklahoma, as we are trying to build out our infrastructure for the future, and we are bringing on more AI data centers, more Bitcoin miners, we are going to be put into a position where we're classifying them in the same way as firm loads that are going to be part of that net peak demand. But by doing that, that means that our substations are going to be created with a requirement for that larger net capacity, that larger net peak demand. And those, the tools and technology that's required to do that are more expensive, right? So this makes then the electricity more expensive, despite the fact that we do have that surplus. And so when that happens, that cost is then offset to the ratepayer. And Oklahoma wants to make sure that our ratepayers aren't going to be subject to higher energy prices as a result of miners and data centers coming into the state. We want them to be here because they do create jobs for us, because they do, secure the money and things like that, if you're a Bitcoin miner. But if we don't classify them appropriately, from a legislative perspective, from a regulatory perspective, then the grid planners are forced to plan as if they are firm loads when really they're more like load balancers. And so I think that means that we're kind of like missing the forest for the trees in Oklahoma, right? Like we don't want to discriminate against Bitcoin miners, which is fantastic, but by not also formally acknowledging their differences from a behavioral market, from their behavior in the market, it changes what we're actually allowed to do for our grid planning. So though we may say that ratepayers are not going to be exposed to high electricity prices as a result of some discrimination or behavior, they will be when we have to build out our substations to host all of these new data centers that are going to be coming here.
Yeah, I mean, and I think to clarify for the viewers so they have a better understanding here, in the past, I mean, the reason why that language was in the bill there is there has been some pushback in the past against Bitcoin miners. But what you're saying here, if I'm translating you right, is that the AI data centers are going to be the corporate instigators in the higher electricity cost more so than Bitcoin miners, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's partially what I'm saying, right? We're going to have to plan for those because they're coming regardless. If we have a 30% surplus in energy, then anyone who consumes energy is going to want to be here. The same thing has happened in Texas. However, if we treat AI data centers and Bitcoin miners as both firm, then we are going to require our grid to be built out to sustain higher net demand, which means more expensive utility creation in the planning process, right? The transmission lines that are capable, those big giant, I don't even know what they're called now that I'm thinking about it. Not the transmissions, but anyways, the infrastructure that's required to build the substations, those are going to have to be bigger with a higher capacity, because we're saying that both the AI data center and the Bitcoin miner are firm.
Yeah.
And they're not. The
yeah.
Bitcoin miner is flexible. And because of that, it can allow us to downgrade whenever the grid is experiencing some kind of serious weather event. And if we can downgrade it, then we can kind of balance the load across the Oklahoma region, and it'll allow people to kind of have pressure release valves, so to speak, on that demand. So that is the demand response that we were referencing earlier. So if we continue on this path of having the Bitcoin miner and the data centers both being classified as firm, then we are going to be forced into building and planning for bigger substations that may not necessarily be required if we could balance the load.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's more of an infrastructure spend problem.
Yeah, and the narrative that miners drive up electricity for residents. I mean, there's data out of Texas that shows the opposite in many cases, and we could dive into that, but let's maybe tackle a different perspective. I mean, what would you say to somebody? I mean, we'll see. We've only got like maybe a minute before we got to go to break. So let me hold off on that question till we come back on the next segment, because I don't want to do us an injustice here. But remind people, if they want to learn more, they want to get plugged in, the advocacy part of what you guys are doing here in Oklahoma. How do they learn more? How do they find out?
Yeah, so you can go to standwithcrypto.org, or you can email oklahoma@standwithcryptoalliance.org. That email leads right to me if you want to volunteer, if you want to be involved, if you're wanting to go to an event to learn more about crypto and Bitcoin. We welcome you 100%. And we will always kind of tell people what's going on with crypto legislation in their specific state. We have a chapter president in all 50 states, and of the 52 million crypto users, 2.7 million of them are Stand With Crypto advocates.
That's
so
great.
We've sent over 250,000 emails to representatives just about the Clarity Act for this year so far. So.
Well, and I'm all about building alliances. I've worked closely as an advisor to the Oklahoma Bitcoin Association, but I love the idea that there are other groups in the state that are going to be putting pressure or providing education, so that way this misconception is often, I guess, brought light to. So we want to make things make sense. So, all right, guys, we got to go to break, but we'll be right back with Caulene MacDonald. Stay put. You don't want to miss it. It's a great conversation. We'll be right back. AI is here, money is changing, but freedom has never been more important. I'm Matthew J. Moore, the Money Block host on BizTV, Amazon bestseller, and Bitcoin policy advisor. Book my up to 60-minute talk, Redefining Wealth and Freedom God's Way. I'll teach your church, business, or civic group how to secure money, freedom, and faith in the digital age. This is urgent, so I'm slashing my fee from $1,000 to $500. Cover my travel, and I'm there. Scan the QR code now. Spots are filling fast. What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is round 5, segment 5 of the Money Block. Yes, that's right. We are America's Bitcoin-focused TV show, radio show. We're all over the place. And we'd love to bring the message of monetary sovereignty, what the future is going to look like as far as digitally goes. And because digital technology, it keeps evolving, keeps playing a bigger part in our life. And blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, it's all part of that. And so every episode, we like to bring conversations that are enlightening, that can give us new perspectives, that can prepare us for the future. And today is no exception. We've had Caulene MacDonald. She is the president of the Oklahoma chapter, Stand with Crypto. They do a lot of advocacy work. She's done her research. She's got everything in line, and she's been bringing us some good insights today for our show, especially around Bitcoin mining and data centers and AI. But before I bring her back on the line to carry on that conversation, this is just another reminder that I want to say thank you for watching and tuning in. You're going to see a QR code that pops up right over there. Be sure to scan that. It's my way of giving you a gift. And it is a free digital download of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. Hopefully, it'll give you the insights, tools, and principles to prepare you for monetary sovereignty in the coming digital age. All right, Caulene, let's pick it up here. We've talked a lot about data centers, mining, AI, but let's talk more about the organization that you're part of. And let's give the audience some perspective about the work that you guys do, how you do it, and why it matters.
Yeah, so there are about 52 million crypto owners and users that are in the United States, obviously representing a pretty large voter block. And so Stand with Crypto was kind of instantiated to give those 52 million people a voice. Since our inception, we have collected 2.7 million advocates across the country. We have chapters, chapter presidents like me in all 50 states at this point, and we have actually just launched our college chapter program that will have, SWC college chapters on various campuses across the country. We already have 21 schools that have been signed up, including Princeton and Yale. So we are working very hard to make sure that these 52 million crypto users have their voices heard in the halls of Congress, at their state legislature, in their local government, etc. We want people to understand what crypto is, how people use it, and what it means for the future of finance. Stand with Crypto does have a number of partners. Coinbase is one of our main partners, along with Kraken and Gemini, MoonPay, and some others. But, we also have grassroots donations that are publicly available on our website to kind of show the community-led energy that kind of facilitates our growth. We will also be at ETH Denver next month from the 16th to the 21st. I'm kind of talking to people about Stand with Crypto and signing up more advocates. Here specifically in the state of Oklahoma, we have 22,344 as the last count. So when crypto legislation comes through Oklahoma and legislators kind of need help to understand what crypto people think about the crypto bills, Stand with Crypto is there to kind of energize that 22,000 base to let the senators and House of Representatives individuals understand what they actually want or need or desire for particular legislation.
So the work that you guys are doing is probably, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's more centered on education and rallying the troops to make some noise about, what's good, what's bad, and, hey, contact your representative, contact your senator, opposed to then just like simply going down to the Capitol and lobbying for specific bills. Am I interpreting that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. So Stand with Crypto is a 501c4. We are nonpartisan, grassroots, totally community-led advocacy and education. The 501c6s, those are more your lobbyists. Those are people who are kind of negotiating the language on a particular bill in favor of one organization or another. For example, the Oklahoma Bitcoin Association's a 501c6. We love the Oklahoma Bitcoin Association at Stand with Crypto. They've been doing amazing work in Oklahoma. And so now that Stand with Crypto is here, we are hoping that we can help energize them even further, so we can make even greater strides in Oklahoma with everything from Bitcoin mining to off-chain labs doing some kind of arbitrum innovations out here. So we just want to make sure that crypto folks have a crypto voice that is heard in the legislative halls. In fact, just the other day, I was at the freshman fundraiser event for the new House representatives that are coming up for this legislative term. And they are extremely interested in being educated on different things that have to relate to crypto. Most of them talk to one representative in particular to help educate them. But this one representative, he's going to need a little bit more bandwidth if he wants to pass more crypto positive legislation. And so that's where I come in. We'll be hosting lunch and learns at the Capitol. We'll be having events in Oklahoma City on a monthly basis so that we can make sure that legislators are educated, that regular crypto people are educated, and even people who know nothing about crypto have somewhere to go if they're interested in understanding what crypto is and why it might be good for them.
Absolutely. And give your website one more time.
Yes, that is standwithcrypto.org. If you go on that website, you can kind of log into your own account, and then your emails to your senators are kind of like basically automated. You can just like click the button. You can get scores on your politician, how pro crypto your politician actually is. And how their voting behavior has impacted that. We do that through like Twitter scraping about, what they've made statements on in the past, how they actually vote, and kind of how they move in the crypto space. So it's very good to have that information on hand, and standwithcrypto.org is a great place to get that info.
I love it. Well, we've got about 40 seconds or so before we have to close out the show. Where could people also follow you?
Yes. So you can follow me on X. You can follow me on TikTok even if you want to. But mostly I'm on X and LinkedIn. But my X is Caulene, Caulene, Amagi, Amagi. Magi is a Sumerian word for freedom. And so I just made everything Caulene Amagi. So
I love
that's
it.
where you can find me.
Well, that's great. Man, this has been a great episode, and so happy to have an ally in the fight for good legislation. All right, guys. Well, this is all we have time for today. We'll be here same time, same place. Adios.
The opinions and suggestions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants and are not necessarily endorsed by program sponsors or any station, media company, or platform broadcasting this program. This program is a product of More Media, LLC. The information in this broadcast is not intended as investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, More Media, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program is not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, More Media, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk.